At 17, you drown every coal in a backyard fire ring. Again. You stir all wet ash to expose any ember underneath. You feel above the ash for hidden heat. 20 years later, you stand in an airplane door above a wildfire. That decision pays about $112,800 yearly. Between those moments sit 9 bases and about 450 jumpers nationwide. Hundreds apply for a rookie class, and roughly 15 people are selected. The government supplies a parachute, an aircraft, and an unreachable fire. You still buy your own boots for $500 out of pocket. The first fire you extinguish is that same backyard pit. You drown it cleanly, stir the ash, and test it again. The hose costs nothing, while every later tool is earned or bought. This is every level of an American smoke jumper's career. It is also what the narrow climb actually costs. If you like breakdowns of how careers actually progress, like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Level 1, the campfire. There's no title here, no crew, no paycheck. There's a fire ring, a hose, and a rule you learned off a brown sign. Drown every coal until the hissing stops. Stir all the ash to expose embers. Feel above the ring with your hand. You burn the wood down to coals, then flood the ring until it hisses. You stir the ash with a camp shovel and flood it again. Then you hold the back of your hand an inch above the ash and wait. If it's warm, you're not done. The first night you skip the stirring. Because the tent is dry and the sleeping bag is right there, the wind comes up in the dark and lifts a live coal into the dry grass. And you run barefoot with the hose in one hand and a boot in the other. It goes out, nobody sees it. You stir every ring you touch for the rest of your life, which is the whole job, 20 years early. In the daylight, you buck firewood with a hatchet from the hardware store and learn that the wood tells you where it wants to split. You clear brush for a neighbor for cash, and he asks for you again in the fall. You carry a loaded pack up a ridge for no reason, except to find out whether you can. The gloves wear through at the palm first. Every August, the smoke comes over the ridge and turns the sun orange, and the tankers come in low over the highway, and you pull the truck onto the shoulder to watch them like everybody else does. In 1939, men intentionally jumped into the North Cascades. They tested whether a fire could be reached that way. The next season, the government spent $9,047 on the experiment. It saved an estimated $30,000 in timber that same summer. That's the entire financial argument for your career, settled before your grandparents met. You check the ring with the back of your hand before anyone asks. Then it's quiet again. You don't know the smoke on that ridge is paid firework. Level 2 is a hose you don't hold and a fire you don't own. Level 2, the seasonal Wildland Firefighter. The first paid fire job is a hand crew or an engine, and it starts with a walk. 3 miles, 45 pounds on your back, 45 minutes, and you're not allowed to run a single step of it. That pack test has been the gate since 1998, and there's no second look if you miss it. You come in under the clock, sweating through a cotton shirt, and a crew boss writes your name onto an incident qualification card, red card. It's the only thing in Wildland Fire that can't be talked around. The wage is $23.20 an hour, and it only became a permanent federal rate on March 23, 2025. The boots cost $500. You make $23.20 an hour. Then the day starts. Pulaski, chainsaw, drip torch, Nomex, and a folded foil shelter, you hope, stays folded in the bottom of the pack. The line begins at an anchor point, a road, a rock scree, a wet meadow, something the fire can't walk around. You cut the brush out ahead of the diggers. You scrape down to mineral soil and cut a cup trench, so nothing can roll across it. You burn the fuel out between your line and the fire with the drip torch. Then you hold what you burned. Then you mop up, working cold ash with a bare hand hunting for heat. You leave a root bridging the trench on your first shift. Because it's dark and you're tired and it looks like nothing, the line breathes overnight and creeps into the green. And you're back on it, before the sun clears the ridge, cutting the root out while the squad watches. Nobody says anything about it after lunch. Luke Mayfield, who runs Grassroots Wildland Firefighters, put the season to Mountain Journal this way. You just work, 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 and then you play, play, play until you're broken. He's right about the hours. He's also describing the best summer you've had. The first overtime check exceeds every amount you've held before. You stop washing the soot out of your sleeves between shifts. The next crew boss once jumped from airplanes. He says your application won't be read yet. Level 3 is the resume you have to build before anyone lets you try. Level 3, the Hotshot. You join an interagency Hotshot crew. These Type 1 hand crews take the country's worst fire line. The pay is $25.37 an hour. The crew trains 40 hours a year just to keep the certification, before a single fire is called. The buggy leaves before light and you sleep in it. And you eat in it. And you learn everyone's snoring pattern by the second roll. You start as a swamper, which means you don't run. The saw, you follow it. The lead sawyer's chainsaw has a name. It's a steel. And the name is Cheeseburger, and you don't get to touch it for a year. Your job is everything that falls behind it. You drag brush, you buck the rounds off the line, you carry the fuel, you hand up the wedge, and you watch the canopy above. His head so he doesn't have to. There's a silky folding saw in your mystery ranch pack for the stuff. Too small to fire up the big one for. Scout the line, flag it. Fell, buck, swamp, dig, burn, hold. 6 verbs, 10 miles of ridgeline, and it repeats. Until the fire is out or the season is. Some weeks you're on a helicopter instead, sliding down a rope onto a ridge no truck will ever see, which is the closest thing to the next level you'll get without a parachute. Then comes the night burnout that nearly ends it. You're on the torch line at 2 in the morning holding a road, and the wind swings out of the drainage without warning. Fire crosses the road and takes hold in the green on the wrong side. You call it, and the whole crew comes off the ridge at a dead run. You cut a scratch line around a quarter acre of spot fire with hand tools. While the squad boss puts a hose lay in behind you, it holds. By first light, a parking lot-sized black scar covers the road's wrong side. Nothing burned beyond it. The division supervisor's after action is 2 sentences long, and neither of them is about you. That's the compliment. You sharpen the chain without looking at it now. They hand you the saw the following week, and it's still called Cheeseburger, because that's not a thing you get to rename. And you wait. Because the base you actually want has a floor on the application. A minimum of 90 days of Wildland fire experience, plus 12 months at the GS4 level. And that's the floor, not the bar. You accept a job that pays less. Level 4 restarts you at the bottom on purpose. Level 4, the rookie Smokejumper. In 1940, Missoula's first jumper made $193 monthly. Today the rookie slot pays $45,239 a year. And more than half the class took a grade cut to sit in it. You are, briefly, the least important person in Wildland Fire again. Around the base, they call you a Ned. And the phrase you hear most for 6 weeks is, "Run, Ned, run." It starts with the pack test that has no partner and no encouragement. 110 pounds, 3 miles, 90 minutes, 1 attempt. You finish with your quads shaking and your hands numb from the straps. And a cadre member writes a check mark next to your name without looking up. A typical class records a 30% washout rate. Then the tower, then the harness, then the thing they call the mutilator. A rig that drops you at a bad angle onto hard ground. So you learn to land in 5 points instead of 2. Ankle, calf, thigh, hip, shoulder. You do it until it stops being a decision. You pack 20 other people's parachutes to federal standard. Before you're allowed to jump one, you packed yourself. And every fold gets critiqued by somebody with a rigger's license and no patience. You sew your own jumpsuit on a machine in the loft. Kevlar over Nomex, with a high collar and pads at every joint. And you sew your own pack-out bag while you're at it. The helmet has a wire mesh cage across the face, because the trees are what you're landing in. In your right leg pocket is 150 feet of tubular nylon, which is the answer to the question of what happens. When you don't reach the ground, then the horn goes off. Suit up, buddy check, walk to the ship, hook the static line. And the spotter throws crepe paper streamers out the door to read the drift. He runs the ship back along the streamers to the spot. He slaps your calf, and you go. The first jump, the ground comes up faster than anything in your life has ever come up. On the third jump, you land 40 feet up in a lodge pole. You hang in the harness and thread the letdown rope through its friction device. Your hands barely cooperate. You lower yourself using the procedure practiced 100 times on the wooden tower. You unhook at the bottom and start collecting your chute. Out of the branches like laundry, nobody comes to check on you. That's what passing looks like at this level. Sam Forstag was 29, in his second rookie year with 49 jumps. He told Fire Rescue 1 the plainest version. You must want this line of work. Otherwise, you wouldn't dig trenches for 16 hours a day. Deanne Schulman rooked out of McCall in 1981. She became the first woman in the job after challenging an agency weight limit. You stop flinching at the open door. You pack your own canopy, you jump it, you walk out under your own load. And your name goes on the list. Level 5 is the list. Level 5, the jumper on the list. The list is the hierarchy. Names rotate, and the fire belongs to whoever exits first. First out is the jumper in charge, which means a 28-year-old with a radio is running an incident that no supervisor can physically reach, 2 at a time out of a Twin Otter or a Sherpa. Or the old DC-3 they call Doug. You get 1 paracargo drop. Small chutes bring saws, water, and food for 3 days. The plane leaves, and the forest becomes quiet. Hazard pay adds 25% of base while the fire is uncontrolled. And it's the only line on the pay stub that reflects what the day was. The day is a lightning strike in a stand of dead timber. And the 2 of you have to have it dead by dark tomorrow. Then it's out. Then comes the part nobody films. You break down the camp, bag the chutes, and put about 110 pounds on your back for a walk. That can run 15 miles to the nearest road. The load is the price of the plane. Halfway out, the trail is a game trail. And then it's not a trail at all. Then a truck, then cold water, then the base, then the list again. Around year 5, they train you as a spotter, and the job inverts. Jake Bessemer, the training manager at the Missoula base, describes it exactly. The spotter gets to the fire and selects a jump, spot, and coordinates the whole mission. You lie in the open door with your head out in the prop wash, reading a meadow for stumps and snags, and the wind that comes off the slope at 4 in the afternoon, streamer away. You watch it fall, you do arithmetic nobody taught you, you correct the run. And you put people on the ground where you said you would. The first load you spot lands clean, and the fire is out in 9 hours, and the pilot says nothing at all on the way back. Which is how pilots say it went well. Then the cost gets named out loud, finally. A national survey of 2,625 current and former Wildland firefighters put hard numbers on what the seasons do to people. And grassroots Wildland firefighters found 78.5% of their respondents carrying something home from the fire. So the bases build peer support in, and the conversation stops. Being a career risk to have, you stop checking the list. You know where you sit on it. What's left above you isn't a jump. Level 6 is the door itself, and who gets to stand in it. Level 6, the base manager. At the top, foreman base pay starts at $71,450. A base manager reaches $96,381. With locality, the top becomes about $112,800. There are 9 of these chairs in the country. Getting one requires the IFPM qualifications. It also requires an FAA senior parachute rigger license. At this level, you're responsible for fabric and people. The loft is yours. Industrial sewing machines, harness webbing on spools, canopies hanging from the ceiling to dry, and a wall of jumpsuits with names inked at the collar. Frankie Romero took over the McCall base in 2005, and the shape of the day hasn't changed since. Dispatch calls. You plot the fire, set the load, brief the spotter, launch the ship, and then you stand at a radio with a grease pencil in your hand. While other people do the part you used to do, resupply goes out by paracargo. DMOB comes back on foot. You hold the aircraft contract, and its availability document carries your signature. You read every line twice. You run the rookie cadre in the spring, which means you're the one saying, "Run, Ned, run." In the same tone it was said to you. The politics reach your desk now too. The Tim Hart Wildland Firefighter Classification and Pay Parity Act, introduced in 2021 and named for a West Yellowstone jumper and spotter, is why the pay conversation finally moved. And the permanent base rates that followed are why the kid on the hand crew makes $23.20 an hour instead of what you made. You testify on none of it. You just write the staffing plan that proves the point. At preparedness level 4, with the whole West drawing down, you make the call on which fire gets your load and which one waits. And you're right often enough that dispatch stops second-guessing you. The horn goes off and you don't reach for your gear. The class you trained in April is on the list by July, and all of them come home in October. That's the number that matters, and it never appears on a pay table. Final beat. The door is yours. Here's the part the recruiting footage leaves out. This airborne firefighting force is among the world's most advanced. Most workers are temporary employees who go home in October. They find other work until May. There's no signing bonus. The application offers risk, seasonality, and a narrow path upward. There's no sale at the end, no equity event, no year where the number doubles. The latter never pays like those in other videos. Everyone knows that before applying. Still, hundreds of applications arrive for about 15 seats. Because the thing being paid out was never the number, it was the door. That doorway becomes the only promotion anyone remembers. An unnamed fire burns in timber with no road or trail. Only 14 other Americans can physically reach it. The map ends before the work begins. You were one of them for years. Then you decided how the next group would reach it. At 17, you watched tankers cross an orange ridge from the highway shoulder. Now that impossible flight is a Tuesday you scheduled. The miracle became logistics because you learned every role below it. There's a need that never quite returned after a Frank Church landing. The body keeps a private record that no pay table carries. You'd sign for the same seasons again, and you'd sign this afternoon. The quiet office lets you hear the aircraft cooling outside. There's a pair of boots under the desk in your office. You paid $500 for them on a seasonal wage. Back then, that was 3 weeks of your life. You've resold them more times than you've owned cars. This morning, you signed a reimbursement for a rookie's first pair. Same $500, same out-of-pocket order, same cracked leather in about 9 years. Except this time, the signature at the bottom of it is yours. She doesn't know your name yet. She'll learn it beneath the wooden tower in April. A cadre member will yell at her to run. The canopies are hanging in the loft to dry. The load list is up on the board in grease pencil. The loft door key hangs on its usual hook, and it is yours.